Bill Schmick. Welcome to 30 Minutes.
And now we get to talk about healthcare issues. Given the fact that I was in the hospital 3 times last year, this is near and dear to my heart. And to anybody, any of us baby boomers that are getting up in age. So why don't you talk about the importance of healthcare issues?
Well, there's 3 basic questions that you need to give the answers to your family, especially your daughter or any children that you have. And those 3 questions really cover all the important issues. The first question is, if I or my spouse need long-term care, in other words, do we need ongoing care, can we continue to live where we are today? Looking at the space that you live in, with any difficulties getting up and down stairs, any difficulties getting in and out of rooms because the wheelchair might not fit, any steps ups or down, any rugs, you need to determine for yourself if in fact you could live there if one of you was incapacitated.
My mother-in-law is 83 years old, has back problems and leg problems, 2-story house in Long Island. She can't get up and down the steps now.
Becomes a real problem, real problem. And that's something that, again, where if you utilize the family meeting, that's a question that needs to come up for children to answer. What do we do? What's mom's situation like? Can she stay in the home, or do we need to change the circumstances? Should she be in an independent living community with other people? If she needs ongoing care, does she need to be in an assisted living facility? What are the circumstances and what's the appropriate situation for her? Unfortunately, lots of times as we get older, no matter what, we don't want to move. But it may be incredibly difficult for us to continue to live where we are. In my own mom's case, she had her own home, but her washer and dryer were down a severe set of steps. And so she'd be carrying a hamper full of laundry down some steep steps, and we finally convinced her that she couldn't live there anymore because it was too dangerous for her to live there. So she sold her home and moved into an independent retirement community that was all on one floor, and she loved it. It was perfect for her. But sometimes we don't want to move, especially if we've lived in a house for 40 years. And that's a difficult question. And that's the advantage of the family meeting, is to talk to our parents and say, you know, if you fall and you break your hip, you have to go into a facility. Do you want to wait until that happens before you do something? So it's a conversation that needs to happen with the family before that arises, before someone gets sick, before dad has a stroke and everyone says, oh my God, dad's on the 2nd floor, we've got to move his bed down to the 1st floor, got to make a new bedroom, and so on and so forth. But that's question number 1. Question number 2 is, who will take care of me or my spouse if we need care? What in the United States, in our country, 2/3 of the caregivers are women. And half of those women are working full time. And they're usually a daughter or a daughter-in-law that becomes the caregiver. It's never a son. It's always a daughter or a daughter-in-law who becomes the caregiver. And oftentimes they don't even know that that's going to be their role until all of a sudden, well, gee, dad's had a stroke. You need to take care of him. I had a situation, I gave a speech in New Hampshire, and after the speech, a woman came up to me and said, Bob, I've got a real problem. I don't know what to do. And she added, I have a son who has dyslexia, and he's in the 6th grade, and every night I have to work with him on his homework and review it with him and help him to understand his homework. And I have a full-time job. I'm working, I have a tough job. It's a lot of pressure on me, and I'm working all day. And 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my brothers, and they said, Sally, Mom's not doing well. She's going to have to move in with you. So here, all of a sudden, she was stuck with a situation that she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She didn't know how she was going to take care of her mother. Her brothers didn't want any part of it. They weren't going to take care of her. So she was stuck. But that happens all the time.
Yes, it's so.
And families need to decide in advance who's going to provide the care. If it's going to be a family member, they need to prepare and help that family member get ready for it. Or if it's going to be a full-time live-in, they need to look for that situation. Or if they need to go into another facility and have someone take care of them there, or maybe just temporarily. But those types of things need to be answered before it happens.
Well, that's all expensive.
It can be very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
I mean, a nursing home or just, elderly care places, a fortune.
Just having a person come into your home, and we tried that with my mother for a while, it was $25 an hour to have someone come into her home. And unfortunately, her memory was failing, so every 8 hours there was a new person coming in, and she didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
Every 8 hours there was a stranger coming into her apartment. So that didn't work.
Right.
So for some people, having an outside person come in who is a trained caregiver, that can work. But sometimes it doesn't work. But you need to decide and discuss it in the family. A friend of my wife's came over to visit us one time, and I asked her, if you're not able to take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? And she said, oh, my son. And I said, oh, okay. Where does your son live? Oh, he lives in Chicago. All right. What's his circumstance? Well, he's married and he has 2 small children, and he's got his own business, and he's got a growing business. And I said, have you talked to him yet about taking care of you? No, I haven't talked to him, but I know he'll take care of me. And that's what happens because we don't ask. We don't get into the conversation beforehand to find out who's going to do what.
Right.
And that needs to happen early on.
Yeah.
The third question was the one you've already alluded to is, if we need care, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah. Yes.
And I know where my mom was, full-time care with level 3 caregiving was about $8,000 a month.
$8,000 a month.
A month. And that's what it costs. So that families need to understand what this type of care costs. And lots of times I'll ask a couple, well, what kind of coverage do you have if you need long-term care? And they said, oh, we've got Medicare. Medicare is our health insurance. We're over 65, and Medicare covers doctors and it covers in-hospital care. Medicare does not cover custodial or long-term care. All Medicare covers is up to 100 days of rehabilitation. You have to be getting better for Medicare to continue. And there is a copay after a certain period of time, so you pay some and Medicare pays some.
And that's if you're recovering.
That's if you're getting better.
Okay.
If you're not getting better, it stops. My mom broke her hip, and she went into rehab, and Medicare was paying, but unfortunately my mom didn't have any memory. So when the aides told her that this is what she should do, as soon as she left the room, she forgot. So she had no idea what, and they said after 3 weeks, she's not going to get any better. So at that point in time, Medicare stopped. So it can be 3 weeks, it could be 3 months, but it won't go beyond 100 days. So Medicare is not going to cover you if you need long-term care. The second option that people say, well, what about Medicaid? I'll just give away my assets and the state will take care of me. Well, that may sound good, but what in fact happens, first of all, if you decided, well, let's say I'll give my assets to my daughter, and then I won't have anything left, and then I'll qualify for state aid.
Yeah.
Well, if you apply for Medicaid, first of all, you can only have about $2,000 in assets in your name. You've got limits of income to about $2,000 a month. You can't have more than that in income. And you can't have any other assets. But if you've given your assets away, Medicaid is going to ask for all your financial records for the last 5 years. They want to see every single account that you have over the last 5 years. And if you have given any of your assets away within the last 5 years, they're going to look and say, oh, sorry, we've got to bring those assets back into your account and use those up before you qualify for Medicaid. So you might have given your $100,000 CD to your daughter. She might have spent it already, but your family is going to have to reimburse Medicaid $100,000 before you qualify.
What about if you own your house?
That doesn't come into play. These are what's called countable assets, which are liquid assets, investments, stocks, bonds, and other assets that are liquid.
Okay.
Your home does not come into play.
What if you've got a reverse mortgage on your home? That still doesn't come into play?
Well, if you've got cash coming out of it, that income is considered as part of your income.
Oh,
so it comes into play as part of your income for Medicaid.
A lot
if
of
you're
people
receiving
do that.
if you're receiving income from that, it's an income asset.
Oh.
So you have to be very careful if you ever want to qualify for Medicaid. What happens to your assets?
Yeah.
And once you apply for Medicaid, you have to find an institution that will take Medicaid patients. There are only a certain number of institutions that qualify for Medicaid.
Yeah.
And in my mom's case, she was coming to the end of her assets. So I started talking to other facilities because the facility that she was in said, I'm sorry, but when she runs out of money, she can't stay here.
Mm-hmm.
She has to move to a Medicaid facility. So I started looking around, and most of the Medicaid approved facilities that I went to had waiting lists. So what was going to happen if my mom ran out of money and we couldn't get her into a Medicaid facility? I don't know what would happen. But that's the circumstance for Medicaid. So Medicaid is not really an answer for most families until you run out of money. Then Medicaid becomes an option.
Well, let me pick your mind on this personally, because I have a mother-in-law. Her husband passed, and she needs help. She can't get up and down the steps herself, and it's hard for her to cook and so forth and so on. So we're thinking in that case that we need to hire somebody. And on the other hand, I have my own mother, that my sister, she lives in the same house but separate. And my sister has a full-time job, and my mother can't take care of herself now at 92 all the time. But she doesn't have the money to hire somebody, So we don't know what to do. And they don't have insurance, They can't qualify for Medicaid. They have too much money, quote unquote, but they don't. So I don't know. I mean, is there any other place to go? I mean, my father was a vet, and my mother-in-law's father was a vet. Does the veterans or the government have any additional stuff?
There is a program through the Veterans Administration called Aid in Attendance. If your family member participated during a period of war in the military, they or their spouse can qualify for the Aid in Attendance benefit, and that will give to a veteran up to about approximately $2,000 a month, or to the spouse of a veteran approximately $1,000 a month. They have to apply, and their expenses need to be greater than their income to qualify. And there's certain limitations in the assets that they can have. It varies from state to state. But you can go to the Veterans Administration, get an application, and generally it's helpful to find someone who knows how to fill these forms out, because they're complicated and detailed, and you want to make sure you fill it out correctly. You submit it to the Veterans Administration. It generally takes 6 months to get an answer. But if you get an answer, it's retroactive to the date they applied. So then they would get coverage from that day forward for that benefit if their expenses, including care, exceeded their income. That's one option. Now, one of the things that I've seen springing up, and we have them we have an organization on Cape Cod called Nauset Neighbors. What's happened, and this is true in other parts of the country, that volunteer organizations have sprung up in various communities that provide care for people in their community. In Nauset Neighbors, there may be 150 people who have volunteered to do various jobs for people. Take them to the doctor, help them with meals, take care of their pets, and charge a minimal amount to be part of that Nauset Neighbor program.
Okay.
Those are starting to pop up all over the country. And that type of group is going to become more and more prevalent because, as you said, a lot of people don't have enough money to hire full-time people, but there are retirees in their neighborhood who volunteer to do those activities in their neighborhood.
Spell it.
On Cape Cod, it's called Nauset, Nauset Neighbors, Neighbors. But in New York, in Boston, it's Beacon Hill is the name of the organization.
Oh, okay. So they're around.
They're in various communities. But I would suggest that you go to what's called the Council on Aging in the community where your mom or mother-in-law live, and ask them if they have that kind of organization in the community. Because the Councils on Aging usually have a pretty good idea of what's going on in their community. And they can help in some cases with transportation. I know in my town, the Council on Aging provides bus services for elderly people. All they need to do is to call, and the Council on Aging bus will pick them up and take them where they want to go. So those kinds of services are becoming more and more prevalent because people don't have enough money to hire caregivers to give them care.
Well, what about me now? I'm healthy, knock on wood, but my mother-in-law, I see that's happened there. What can I do now to ensure myself that I don't end up in that kind of situation?
Well, one of the things that I recommend to everyone is if you're healthy, that you consider looking at long-term care insurance. It's a type of insurance that's specifically designed to take care of you if you can't do some of the activities of your daily life, or if you become mentally incompetent. Long-term care insurance provides a daily benefit, upwards of $300 a day, in some cases more than that, for a period of time, either for care at home, care in an assisted living, or care in a nursing home. And if you can't do two of the activities of daily living, the general activities of life, you qualify for that care. It's the only option that I know for people who are healthy to find other than using up their own retirement assets. Too many people, the only asset they have left, they can't use Medicare. They haven't used up their assets for Medicaid. They're not veterans. The only choice that they have is their retirement assets.
And at $8,000 a month, you said?
They can burn that up very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly. That's why I think it behooves us, each person, to at least apply for long-term care insurance to find out what it costs, what it takes, can I get coverage or not? Because it's the only other option that we have available. And the long-term care insurance policies are based upon the age that you file for them, the age you apply, the amount of daily benefit that you apply for, and the length of the term. So the cost is based upon those variables. And it's not cheap, but care is a lot more expensive.
Yes, I mean, I don't even know if I could get long-term care.
You don't know until you try, until you apply. Now, there's another option to that people who might not necessarily be able to apply for long-term care insurance, there are other options that are more flexible. There are life insurance policies that have a long-term care rider attached to them. So that, for example, a person puts down $100,000, they buy a single premium life insurance policy with a death benefit of approximately $165,000 and a long-term care benefit of $3,000 a month for 3 years. So if they don't use the long-term care policy, they still have the life insurance policy with a growing cash value that they can use for themselves if they want to.
Yeah.
So it's another option. And generally speaking, insurance companies are more flexible with that type of program than they are with a traditional long-term care policy. There are annuities too that you can also utilize. An annuity product that you can purchase, an annuity that has an increasing cash benefit that provides long-term care insurance for you, that if you don't use the long-term care insurance, the annuity will grow and eventually pay you out income. So that's another option. So people who say, well, I don't want to buy a long-term care policy because it's money down the drain. If I don't use it,
if you don't use it,
it's gone.
It's
like
gone.
auto insurance. It's gone, but it's
Right.
more expensive than auto insurance.
Yeah.
But these other options, and they're becoming more and more prevalent, other options that are available through various insurance companies to provide you with a benefit that's there whether you need the long-term care insurance or not, and they're more flexible in underwriting than a traditional long-term care policy, because the long-term care policy is strictly based upon your health at that time. So it's worth looking at the options. That's why I suggest that you find someone who is knowledgeable regarding long-term care insurance, not your average Joe on the street that may be just trying to sell you a policy, but someone who's experienced.
Is there specialists in
There are
this kind of-
specialists that specialize in long-term care. There is a designation called CLTC, Certified in Long-Term Care Insurance. The CLTC website is there, and you can probably get the names of people who have been trained to understand long-term care insurance from the CLTC website. Because you want to speak to someone who understands the programs and understand if in fact you can apply for coverage, what it costs, and what type of program is right for you.
What does it cost? You've kind of not told me that.
Well,
am I talking $50,000 a year?
It could be $5,000 to $7,000 a year for you and your
okay.
wife, something in that range. $8,000 a year. I was fortunate enough that I purchased mine about 15 years ago, so mine is less expensive. However, the premiums that you pay for long-term care insurance are not guaranteed. In other words, the premiums on my policy have gone up twice. Twice.
Okay.
The first time was about a 15% increase. The second time was another 20% increase.
Wow.
However,
wow.
It's still less expensive than if I needed care.
Well, yeah, you said maybe it cost me $8,000 a year, but you also said that it was $8,000 a month for your mother.
And my mom was in the facility for 5 years.
Whoa.
At $8,000 a month. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And unfortunately, families see their savings just go up in smoke because they haven't done anything and they haven't taken care of that problem. And it's not going to go away, because what's happening today is we're all living longer.
Yeah, that's true.
I've done some research recently, and the fastest growing age group in the United States are the people over the age of 85.
Wow. That's the fastest
growing age group
boy.
are the people over age 85. However, according to the Alzheimer's Association, 1/3 of the people over age 85 have dementia.
Really?
1/3. 1/3.
Is there any statistics about how many people in the United States need long-term care versus, we all hope that what's going to happen to us, which is total, and I'm guilty, unrealistically, I'm going to be in full health, I'm going to fall asleep one night and never get up.
Right.
Okay?
That's
it.
everyone's hope or expectation.
That's not realistic, but emotionally, that's where I am. Is there any statistics about how many people
the statistics haven't been kept up to date. The statistics were related to nursing homes, in that I think the average person stays in a nursing home anywhere from 18 months to 24 months. But that is because people don't want to be in nursing homes.
Yeah.
that the whole environment has changed so that nursing homes are getting smaller, but assisted living facilities, some of them are beautiful. And I just visited one near me on Cape Cod. It was like a country club.
Yes.
It was gorgeous.
Yes,
It was
a lot of
beautiful.
that is
It was beautiful. And they have a pool, and they have health care benefits, and they have a workout facility. They have everything. It's just like a country club.
Right.
But of course, you have to be able to afford it to
Yes.
be able to do it.
Yes.
And not everyone can. So that's why you have to plan ahead so that you can pay for it. And if you have long-term care or the equivalent of a policy through an insurance, life insurance or annuity, then you might be able to pay for it. Otherwise, it's going to use up your retirement assets.
Well, thank you, Bob. This has been a great show. The first two were a great show. And you viewers, if you get anything out of this, let me recommend again that you order this book by Bob, okay, Mortar Stock, and this book, okay? And they're great reading. The other thing that I would recommend strongly, as Bob said, is to order this 5 Wishes. Again, that's Aging with Dignity, and I'd order that as well. And Bob, if people wanted to get to you and contact you, what's your
I have
website?
a website called giftofcommunication.com, and they can get in touch with me through my website. I have lots of different ways that they can reach me. There's my background in my books, and I'm doing a lot of speaking to groups around the country. So if a person is interested, they can talk to me about perhaps coming to speak to their group.
Okay, well, great. Well, again, thank you, and
Thank you,
thanks
Bill.
for your time.
It's been a pleasure.